When the crown of England touched Catherine Howard's head, the celebration was deafening. Cannons fired, crowds cheered. But for Catherine, the jewels and the fanfare masked a terrifying silence. To the world, she was a queen, but in the quiet of her own mind, she knew she was an imposter. Because the crown didn't just give her power, it illuminated the shadows where her secrets hid. It gave everyone who knew the truth of her past the leverage they needed to destroy her. To understand the loneliness of Catherine's end, we must look at the neglect of her beginning. She was born a Howard, a name that dripped with gold and history, but she was raised in the dust of that legacy. Her parents' crushing debts swallowed their stability. Her mother died young. Her father was alive, yet absent, paralyzed by poverty. By the time she was sent to the Duchess of Norfolk's household, she wasn't just a ward, she was surplus. She was a girl who had learned early that to be safe, she had to be invisible. Her education was a curriculum of charm, not survival. She was taught to dance, to embroider, to smile until her cheeks ached, the polite graces of a doll on a shelf. She lacked the iron-spined political training of a Catherine of Aragon or the intellect of her cousin Anne Boleyn. She was sent into a court built on blood and whispers, armed only with a lute and a pretty smile. In the Duchess's household, Catherine learned a dangerous lesson about love. The dormitories were crowded, the supervision non-existent. Francis Dereham was one of the older men who seized upon that chaos. He saw a girl starving for kindness and used that hunger to get what he wanted. They used the language of marriage in the shadows, calling one another husband and wife. To him, it was a convenience, a game. To her, it felt like the only stability she had ever known. She didn't understand that by Tudor law, those whispered promises were a legal shackle, a pre-contract that would one day turn her marriage to the king into treason. When she became queen, the past didn't fade. It walked through the door. Francis Dereham returned. He didn't ask for favors. He arrived with the smug confidence of a blackmailer. He stood in her court not just a servant, but as a predator disguised as a creditor. He looked at the Queen of England and saw only the vulnerable girl he used to control. Catherine felt the walls closing in. Rejecting him would provoke him to speak. Accepting him was to invite a viper into her bed. Terrified and isolated, she hired him into her household. It was a desperate gamble born of panic, placing a ticking bomb inside her own chambers just to keep it from exploding. She wasn't just fighting Dereham, she was fighting the eyes of the court. People from her past began to circle, sensing blood in the water. Catherine had climbed to the dizzying height of the throne, but she looked down to find the ladder shaking. Every old acquaintance was a potential executioner. And meanwhile, she had to perform. Henry VIII adored her, but his love was a heavy, suffocating weight. She was his rose without a thorn, a fantasy of youth to soothe his aging ego. Catherine poured herself into the role, terrified of slipping. She mothered his children, Edward and Elizabeth, desperately trying to heal a fractured family, hoping that if she was good enough, she might be safe. She was a teenager trying to hold together a dynasty with trembling hands. The king showered her with jewels. For a girl who had known poverty, the gold felt like armor. She wore the diamonds and pearls as if they could physically protect her from the judgment of the court. She sent gifts home, trying to buy the love and stability she never had as a child. But the court didn't see a generous girl. They saw a parvenu, a poor relation playing dress-up. And the more she tried to shine, the more they despised her for it. And while Catherine danced, the king decayed. The silence in the royal chambers was only broken by the king's pain. Henry was rotting, his leg ulcerated, his moods violent and erratic. He would disappear for days, leaving Catherine alone in the vast and echoing palaces. She was left to wonder, did I displease him? Is he bored? Am I next? She had no one to ask, no allies, just the cold stares of courtiers waiting for her to fall. Into this vacuum of fear and isolation stepped Thomas Culpepper. He was everything the king was not, young, handsome, and attentive. He offered the genuine warmth that the king denied her, knowing precisely how to manipulate the isolated queen. At first, it was just sympathy, a kind word offered when the king turned away. But Culpepper was a man who craved risk, and he saw the queen's chambers as the ultimate, fatal challenge. But for a girl starving for connection, sympathy is a powerful drug. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be heard. She wanted to be someone, not just the king's nursemaid or the Howard family's pawn. The secret meetings, the clandestine notes, they weren't just treason. They were a lonely girl's desperate scream for life. But in Tudor England, seeking comfort was a capital offense. It was an open door to treason, and an open door is all it takes to build a scaffold. The tragedy was that she was entirely alone. The Howard family, her own flesh and blood, had pushed her onto the throne to secure their power after Cromwell's fall. They celebrated their triumph, but they gave her no map. They threw a child into a pit of vipers and expected her to charm them. When the rumors began to swirl, when Derham's whispers grew too loud to ignore, her family didn't step in to protect her. They watched. They calculated. They prepared to cut her loose. This was the lethal irony of Catherine's life. Her family had installed her, but they would not save her. Behind her walked the ghosts of her past. Ahead of her lay the block. Derham's arrogance grew. The rumors caught fire, fueled by ambitious men who saw a Howard downfall as their own ladder to success. Catherine Howard's queenship began in glitter and ended in a dungeon. But long before the axe fell, the tragedy was already written. She was a girl who spent her life looking for a home, for safety, for love. She found only a crown that was too heavy to bear. She entered the court an orphan seeking a savior. She would leave it a traitor, marked for death. The storm wasn't coming. It had been raging inside her all along.